Yo, what's up? My name is Sven, and today I present to you 100 tips and tricks you should know when building a base in Rust. 100 in one video is a lot, so I'm gonna try to keep it as short as possible per tip. I expect that most of you already know about half of the tips or more, although for the more newer players out there, and of course for those who are just curious and want to make sure they know absolutely everything, I made this video. Now without further ado, let's jump straight into it. Hope it's useful. Let's start with tip number 1 and the thing that you always want to do when building a base, which is to plan your base build. Pre-build it on a server or on Fortify. Make screenshots, recordings, etc. so you know what you're up to before building a base on a live server. Tip number 2. If you're looking for a good build server and all the main build servers are full, try to look for a server in a different region. Ping doesn't really matter when building, and for example the Intoxicated build server has an NA server and an EU one. One region could be full while the other isn't. You can also create your own private build server, but that will most likely cost money. Tip number 3. Always start small and expand later. It does save a lot of time to build your base from a starter straight away instead of having a separate starter base. Also, only expand your base when you know you have the materials for it. It's for example not smart to build your foundations out already and have them upgraded without actually building parts of your base on top. Tip number 4. If you're building for a bigger group, make sure you always have a second person that knows how to build the base, just in case you have to go offline. A good tip here is that if you pre-build your base on a build server, to record how to build it and share the video with your teammates. This will allow any of the teammates in worst case scenario to continue building the base. Tip number 5, an obvious one, but always make sure that you have the right amount of materials to start building your base. The last thing you want is not being able to upgrade the last twig wall on your starter, where you would have to go out and farm more just to upgrade that last twig wall. It's always better to have more materials than you need than less. For tip number 6, always make sure you're completely familiar with the build costs of your base. What I mean with this is that you don't want to end up being stuck building a huge ass base as a solo because you kind of misunderstood how much it was gonna cost in reality. For example, if a base that you want to build costs 150k metal fragments, that means that you're gonna have to hit 150 metal nodes to finish your base in metal fully. Now in this case we're talking about a pretty big base, but you get the idea. Now tip number 7, I have a quick picture for you guys that shows how much it costs to build twig, wood, stone, metal and high quality metal. You can also see how much it costs to upgrade. Now it's important to know that the upgrade order doesn't matter. For example, if you have a twig wall that you want to make metal, it will cost the same amount of metal to make that twig wall metal rather than if that wall would be stone and you'd make it metal. Tip number 8. Make sure to place your foundations on the correct height. Don't place them too low, don't place them too high. Now this also depends on the type of base that you want to build. So before building your actual base, make sure to double check you actually have the space by placing twig foundations around. Tip number 9. There's a lot of bases out there that require a perfect flat surface to build on. For example, an ice lake. When you want to build a base like this, make sure that you realize and keep in mind that you won't sometimes be able to actually build this base in a wipe because all the ice lakes are already taken, etc. So always have a backup base you can build somewhere else that doesn't require a flat surface. Tip number 10. Always try to avoid building insanely high foundations, as they most likely make your base weaker and can be soft-sided as well. Of course, if you know what you're doing, do it, but just make sure you keep this in mind. Tip 11. Make sure to place and build and upgrade your walls facing the right side. It's important that the hard side of the wall faces outwards. This way, the wall can't be soft-sided. Now here's a quick picture of how the hard side and the soft side looks for each building material. Tip number 12. Ceilings can also be soft-sided, in case you didn't know. Make sure to keep this in mind when building outwards, for example on your shooting floor. 13. Always build an airlock. An airlock will prevent players from sneaking in your base in case you die with the door open. Here's some quick examples of how you can build an airlock in different ways. 14. When building an airlock, it's nice that you can look outside by using for example a shop front or a window. Remember that the window is not a default blueprint. Now sometimes if you build a smaller base, this window could potentially reveal a lot of stuff that's going on inside your base, making your base weaker as people can actually look inside and know what is where. Make sure to consider this when using windows on your airlock or anywhere else. 15. A nice way of upgrading your airlock or protecting yourself before leaving the base is by building stairs the following way. Now make sure to not upgrade the stairs before you place the wall behind it. When the stair's metal, you won't be able to place the wall anymore. The stair's pretty good and gives you quite a lot of cover, although remember that you can still die. People can still shoot you and damage you. 16. This is actually a very important one, but always make sure to code lock your TC. And with TC, I mean the tool cupboard. 17. Remember that when you place a tool cupboard, it's not like any other deployable because you cannot pick it up anymore. It's going to be permanently in its place until someone destroys it. If you do end up having to replace your TC in a different location, the best way to get rid of it is by using fire arrows or fire bullets on top, or shooting a bunch of shotgun ammo or Eoka ammo on it. Doing this will attract people and they might know what's going on, so always make sure you have a second teammate ready. Place a new TC wherever you want to place the new TC at. When your TC is gone, that means that anyone outside your base, or inside or on top, has building privilege and will be able to place a new TC down. If not being done carefully, this can mess up your entire base and your entire wipe. 18. The tool cupboard is quite vulnerable as it takes one rocket to be destroyed. Now always make sure you hide it and place it in a strong area in your base so that it's the hardest for raiders to get to. 19. Also, when destroying a tool cupboard, make sure to always take out all the materials that are inside. What happens is pretty complicated to explain, but when a tool cupboard that has materials inside gets destroyed, it will forcefully put whatever materials were needed for the base to be upkept for 24 hours into the base, aka those materials will disappear. This is also why if a base is raided and a tool cupboard is destroyed, the base won't decay or it won't start decaying until 24 hours after the raid. And this is also why that if you're raiding a big base that has only one TC and that's very costly in upkeep, when destroying the TC you'll basically end up with like 3 or 4 item slots. The items were basically forcefully put into the base. 20. There's actually some pretty advanced and unique ways to hide your tool cupboard. For that, I would really recommend to check out YouTube, as there's a lot of content creators sharing these ideas. 21. When destroying a tool cupboard that has multi-TCs, aka overlapping TCs, make sure to really know what you're doing. Make sure to have this tested as well, because as you have overlapping TCs, when destroying the main TC, the other TCs will overlap, and you won't be able to place the tool cupboard on the main base back. There's a few ways to fix this, but the easiest is by removing all 4 or whatever amount of TCs you have overlapping, and then place the TC in the main base, and then place the multi-TCs back. 22. Don't spend an insane amount of metal code locking absolutely every box in your base. It's just not worth it, especially not if you're in a big group. Now, of course, if you're playing in a smaller group and you might get online raided, it could be a good thing to do, as it could slow down raiders, as they'd have to forcefully destroy every box to check the loot. 23. Don't worry too much about where you place your tier 1 workbench. This workbench can be destroyed super easily, it has a very low durability, and the idea is that when you get a level 2 workbench, to just use melees to pick out the level 1 workbench. 24. Never place any excessive workbenches that you might not need. For example, having a level 1 workbench in your inner peak downs, and definitely not at your bunker entrance, as it would make it a lot easier and a lot more considerable for raiders to soft side, for example, your bunker or other walls, as they basically have a free workbench to repair their jackhammers close by. Tip 25. Here's by far what I think is the most useful and fast way to get rid of a level 2 workbench. Now, of course, you could always place it on top of a wooden foundation and pick that out. But if you just turned out to have placed it and the walls and everything is upgraded, what you can do is use a shotgun trap, have a teammate or yourself be unauthorized from the tool cupboard, and have the shotgun trap baited so that it will damage the level 2 workbench. It will take a bit, but if you fill up the shotgun trap with enough ammo, you can actually do this and go AFK and come back, and the tier 2 will be gone. 26. A good idea that you want to keep in mind when placing a tier 3 workbench is to remember that it has a lot of durability. Meaning that if placed correctly on a wall that you expect to be blown when being raided, the tier 3 can be used as an extra layer of protection / honeycomb. It actually takes 2 C4 or 8 rockets to destroy a tier 3 workbench. 27. Make sure to always double check before upgrading anything to a higher quality of material. You can destroy any placed building blocks with a hammer by holding right click, but only within a maximum of 10 minutes after building the block. The timer only counts when starting to build the block. So for example, if you have twig already placed all around your base, and like let's say an hour later you're gonna to upgrade everything to stone, you won't be able to remove the walls anymore. One other thing you should know is that you can always rotate walls by upgrading to a higher tier material. 28. When upgrading your base, make sure to always upgrade your roofs first. It's not only cheaper, but it's also easier, most likely, that your roofs can be splashed by rocket damage. And it's basically a cheap way of preventing that from happening. 29. Never upgrade your foundations to higher than metal. You only want to do this if the foundations are so high that when destroyed, a raider could crouch under. If he can't, don't make it higher than metal. Foundations that could potentially be soft-sided, for example bunker foundations, you always want to make armored straight away as they are the core. 30. Always skip fancy and decorative stuff in your base. It's nice to have lights and Christmas lights and all that stuff, but it's always better to prioritize building the main base first before adding anything excessive that you don't need. 31. Always use your metal wisely when upgrading. Something that I recommend to do is when honeycombing, for example your 2x2, that's stone, use the metal first to make doors, then use the metal to create the inner honeycomb, make all the rest and leave all the rest stone, then upgrade the inside of the base to metal as well, which you can do from the inside, and at the far end upgrade the outside of your base after you did everything else. Now, you don't want to be a raid target, and you will definitely become a raid target if your entire base is metal super early in the wipe. Number 32. Make sure to always test place foundations when adding honeycomb to your base before placing the walls. What could potentially happen is that when you need to elevate a foundation and the wall is already there, you're not going to be able to place the foundation anymore. The way to do that is by firstly placing the twig foundations to see, oh hey, I can build higher here, I need to put a half wall instead. This usually happens when building on a hill or on uneven terrain. 33. Always add the same amount of honeycombing on the top and on the side of your base as it costs to raid through the doors. This way, raiders won't really know what's the cheapest way, and that's good. That makes your base actually stronger. 34. A good way to save resources when needing to build half walls in honeycomb or wherever. Attach the half walled floors first, as you can see in the video right now. Then remove the half walls that you placed and make them into full walls instead. You want to do this because it costs the same amount of materials to upgrade a half wall as to upgrade a full wall. I know, this makes no sense. Number 35. I would pretty much never really recommend to upgrade any of the outside walls of your base to HQM. You never want to give raiders an incentive to specifically raid you. So unless you have a really direct reason to, don't upgrade anything that you can see from the outside to HQM. 36. Never build the same base every time. Especially not if you play on a dedicated server every wipe. 37. Try to avoid using roofs unless you really know what you're doing. Roofs can be a pain in the ass to work with if you don't know what you're doing. 38. The same really goes for foundation stairs. They can be really weird, especially for beginning builders, and there's just certain things that you cannot do that you would expect you would be able to do with. I recommend to avoid using foundation stairs, especially in the beginning of your base building. 39. Also, try to avoid using half walls. They actually are pretty useless unless you actually know what you're doing as well, and you can't attach pretty much anything to it. They don't really act like a building block. I pretty much see them as a fill-up thing / deployable because they don't really function for anything. 40. When building a stability bunker, make sure it's not splashable / exploitable. A lot of the old, more traditional stability bunkers could potentially be exploitable or splashable, however you want to call it, at this moment of the video. If you're using a bunker, make sure you're familiar with their updates and with their exploits as well, and with their weaknesses. 41. When building any type of stability bunker, it's most likely a good habit to always upgrade the stability holding part to wood. Wood is still easy to be soft-sided, although it's not as weak as twig. Now, in my opinion, you might as well. Just in case, you know. 42. Never, ever build too much or your entire base in twig. There's a lot of reasons why you don't want to do this, but most importantly is that you don't want to give anyone the idea how your base is going to look like and what you're planning on building. Just an example here, but if people see what you're building and how big, it might give them an impression of how much you're going to expand and how much you're going to farm. So it might give them an incentive to actually raid you early on. 43. Always make sure to place your TCs wisely. Meaning, place them in different locations every time. Place them in locations where raiders would least expect them, while still being strong and good protected. Now, don't take this too far, but what I've seen in the past is that people would place their TC hidden somewhere in a random door in their airlock instead of in their main core. It could work, but it could also not. Think about it. 44. Never put all your boom and explosives in one place. It's best to make split or unlootable or hidden loot rooms where you don't have all the boom in one particular loot room, for example. The last thing you want is have raiders use your explosive to continue on raiding your own base. 45. When building a bigger base in a bigger group, when you're building bedrooms always try to split the bedrooms. Having split bedrooms for each person in your group is not only more practical, but also makes it harder for raiders, especially to online raid your base. 46. Always build a base based on what you need and what your group wants and needs and aims for. You don't want to be stuck with a base that doesn't fit your current playstyle. For example, if you're not going to be online a lot, don't waste materials on having inner peak downs, because they're absolutely useless in an offline raid. Instead, in that case, you'd probably be better off building a cave base with low amount of materials needed, so you can always log out and not be too worried because you have a pretty strong base for a cheap cost. Caves are OP, by the way. 47. Try to build around traps, especially shotgun traps. Traps are actually insanely overpowered, especially to defend your base, both offline and online. And if done correctly, raiders are gonna need to waste a lot more boom than anticipated to get rid of well-placed traps. Best example I can give is always place shotgun traps under jump ups. If you're getting raiders and raiders try to jump down, there's a pretty big chance they just get absolutely fucked by a shotgun trap. 48. In the same example of placing a shotgun trap under a jump up, make sure to always keep in mind that if a trap can be baited or can be destroyed without doing its job because it can be seen, for example, don't waste materials on it, don't place it there. It's just entirely useless. 49. If you're playing in a smaller group or as a duo or solo, consider using unlootable loot rooms. There's a lot of concepts and good unlootable loot rooms out there, so check YouTube. But the overall idea of an unlootable loot room is to make it so that raiders will be forced to always destroy at least one wall to be able to get to the loot. Of course, since you and your team has access to, for example, the code lock on the box, you can still always access the loot. This is actually very strong, especially when you're in a smaller group. And so it will cost raiders a lot more to raid your base fully and to get all the loot. 50. Always consider having some kind of shooting floor or outer peak downs, as it will always insanely help you to defend your base against potential raiding, people camping outside your base, etc. 51. Always build out your base in width, in size, before building the shooting floor. You want to make sure you do this because if you build a shooting floor and then later on build your base even thicker, it's gonna mess up your outer peak downs and your shooting floor as well. Now, of course, there's always fixes for this. For example, what you could do is when honeycombing your base further out, when you already have a shooting floor, is by only honeycombing like the bottom part. Number 52. Make sure to always build some kind of inner layer on your shooting floor, as people can be pushed through into the shooting floor through the doors. Now, just so you're familiar with this, if you look in the video, this is the basic and the most useful way to have outer peak downs with doors, but players can be pushed through, so make sure you always have some kind of second layer and always expect players to be camping there, especially when helis are landing on it. Number 53. Never craft too many double metal doors. Ultimately, at the end stage of your base, you're gonna mostly have garage doors everywhere, and so in my opinion, it's better to save metal for garage doors straight away, because they are a lot stronger than metal doors and they will save you a lot of metal if you do this. 54. Never place down large furnaces or oil refineries or other big deployables close to your base, especially not when you're still building it. Usually the hitbox of these deployables is pretty messed up, and it's pretty likely that it will happen that you won't be able to place certain foundations or walls or doors or other deployables because the large furnace is in the way, for example. So make sure to always keep this in mind. 55. Never build anything really close to your base either. For example, if you have a compound, or if you're gonna build one, it's better to farm a tiny bit more stone or wood for the walls to make your compound slightly bigger, so that you can have your large furnaces and other deployables in your compound further from your base, because they will block vision, especially from your outer peak down. 56. In case you don't know, these are the deployables that you cannot pick up, even with a hammer, after you place them. Here's a list. 57. Electricity in Rust is insanely overpowered if you're using it correctly. And with that said, if you do consider using any type of electrical stuff in your base, for example turrets, always make sure you know what you're investing in. It costs a lot of high quality metal to craft turrets and other electrical components, but I can tell you now, it is worth the effort. 58. In terms of upgrading your base to HQM, I would once again recommend to first upgrade your ceilings to HQM before doing walls and other stuff. This again because it's simply the cheapest. Also, if you have a single door frame with an armored door, it's pretty pointless to upgrade the door frame or any other door frame actually to HQM, as the best door, aka the armored door placed in it, will always be cheaper to go through for raiders, and it will be the same cost as metal anyways. So makes it pointless to upgrade this to HQM. 59. I would once again not really recommend to use ladder hatches. They are very weak and they are the same cost to rate as a metal door. Although a ladder hatch can never really be upgraded to anything because there's no such thing as an armored ladder hatch, while a metal door can. Also, don't ever place ladder hatches right above each other. As they're so cheap to raid through, raiders will pretty much always raid through ladder hatches. Just try not to use them. 60. Always save all your gears for garage doors. Never ever recycle gears, basically. Also, if you do have gears, make sure to use them straight away by placing more garage doors. 61. Always have multiple bags and beds. Especially if you're playing on a very popped server and you expect to be online rated and you have a base with inner peak downs. It's really nice to have multiple bedrooms with multiple beds and with multiple locations where you can spawn from and defend your base from. This is actually something that I've started to do in a lot of bases that I built on actual wipes, and it's always paid off. Raiders pretty much think that when they have at least some bedrooms, they think they have all because they don't really expect, because no one really has multiple bedrooms in their bases yet, although it is insanely overpowered to have. 62. When building any type of bigger base or smaller base, always expect that the first 2 floors of your base will be blown from the side. Especially if you build a 3x3 with peak downs, this is usually what raiders blow. So, what you might want to consider is having your loot or your main loot or your tier 3, your TC, etc. not on the first or second floor. Number 63. Something to keep in mind when finishing the roof of your base is that you should always expect that people, and especially bigger clans with scrap helis, might land on top of your base and raid your base from top down. Now in some cases, especially with 3x3s, this is the most effective way to online raid the base. And so a lot of more people are starting to do this on a daily basis, so to say. So always expect this to happen and build your base around this idea. Make sure it's strong from the top, maybe even half wall it, etc. 64. Try not to place any deployables on your shooting floor. One of the main reasons you have a shooting floor is because of to take attack heli from, and so your shooting floor is going to get rocketed by the attack heli. Now, any deployables that are on this level will most likely get destroyed by the fire or the rockets from the attack heli. 65. On places that are, let's say, close to the outside of your base, aka the front door, access to your shooting floor, or any places where you might encounter door campers or players to fight from, don't use garage doors there. They take such a long time to open and close. They also give less cover, and raiders will have enough time to realize what's going on and that you're opening a door. Just use your metal doors for this, as you can quickly open and close them. And sometimes you can even open them without the raiders hearing that you opened it. 66. When building a base, always keep in mind that it's nice to have drop chests somewhere. Drop chest areas are usually close to the front door and primarily function for people to just drop off loot quick to go back out straight away again. Number 67. This one is mostly for the bigger groups with higher amounts of loot. But what's nice to do is have designated boxes for designated loot. Now, I understand this makes sense, but 2 things that can be really helpful around this subject is by 1, to skin the boxes in particular colors or skins so that you know what loot is in what. There's actually some really cheap box skins that you can use if you don't want to spend too much money on these skins. And 2, what's also very important is there is actually a lot of ways to make super efficient loot rooms, but I would really recommend to base that off what you need. For example, it's not really nice to have a super efficient loot room with barbecues, etc. in a square block when you're playing in a bigger group, as it can be quite hard for multiple people to access the same box. Now my tip here is to always keep that in mind when building bases. Make sure there's enough space and that boxes are easily accessible by multiple people. 68. When building loot rooms, keep in mind that doors can be splash damaged. You want to try to avoid building loot rooms right next to each other, because if you do, with rockets, 2 doors or even 3 could be damaged at once. 69. Something that not a lot of people know is that the upkeep costs for your base are based on the amount of blocks that are placed. Now this is ratio/percentage based, so at some point it doesn't matter anymore. Although, early in the wipe, to keep your upkeep costs as low as possible, you want to not place any walls, door frames or anything that you not need at that moment. For example, why would you have a door frame without a door in it? 70. Never place electrical components, such as blockers, branches, root combiners, in places where they could be destroyed. These things are super easy to be destroyed, and for example, what I see a lot of people do is place these out in the open, in their compound, or even without the compound. Now, anyone could come up and just pick it out. Always place these electrical components inside somewhere. Something nice that I like to do is place them inside the external TCs. Number 71. Never place all your electrical components on one wall. Try to spread it it out a bit. And of course, if you have a small base and you have to, you have to. Another tip I can give is have the electrical walls upgraded. For example, if you have a full metal base, make some of the walls that have electrical components into armored. 72. The most important electrical component in your base is the battery. Now, when building a base, you always want to keep in mind where are you going to put those, because they have to be very secured. Raiders could potentially destroy the windmills on top of your base or root combiners around, but if they destroy the battery, it's all over. All your electrical stuff won't work anymore instantly. 73. Don't upgrade double door frames when you really don't need to yet. In some bases, especially the smaller ones, you might regret this and you won't be able to demolish them anymore. For example, if you were to build half-walled loot rooms, you might not be able to anymore because you wouldn't be able to place a half wall in your base to attach a roof to. 74. Remember that you cannot place garage doors in pathways where there's other stuff blocking it. Now, you have to be really careful with this because, for example, the tier 3 workbench you can't pick up anymore. So you always want to check if it's potentially blocking any doors, and if you want to be 100% safe, you place the garage doors first, open them, and then place whatever deployables you want. 75. Here is how you can place 2 small boxes under a workbench level 3. 76. Don't forget to always code lock your doors after you place them straight away. Also, if you're playing in a group, it can't harm to have at least one teammate get all the doors before you log out. Because we're all human and sometimes we mess up a code. And you obviously don't want your entire team to be affected by this mistake. 77. Vending machines are a great way to alternate your storage. Although, remember some things. When placed by default, they broadcast their position. Disable this. Also, you can rotate them using a hammer, but only from specific angles. Now, you cannot rotate them if there's items inside. Another thing to know, when vending machines get destroyed by a raider, all the items inside disappear. 78. Vending machines are nice to use, but their hitbox is pretty messed up. You can use them to place them and clip them through double door frames, although you won't be able to place the door if there isn't a door placed yet, or if you pick up a door and a vending machine is blocking, you won't be able to place the door back anymore. Now, this is just a common example with doors, but vending machines have really weird hitboxes. And not only that, they're very expensive, so always double check to make sure that that is the final location you're gonna want to have it. You can't pick them up. 79. When placing a SAM site to protect your base from flying vehicles, make sure to remember that it cannot shoot below its horizontal axis. Now, there's actually a lot more to know about SAM sites, and I've made a dedicated video about how to use them the best way. If you're interested in using SAM sites, I would really recommend to watch that video. 80. When building a compound, you don't necessarily always need gates. There's a lot of unique and alternative ways to build a gatehouse made from normal rust blocks. But remember 2 things. Players can ladder up from the front, so always place metal barricades on top. Next to that, I can always recommend that if you're building a gatehouse, to always build the gatehouse first, because walls can be clipped through building blocks, but not the other way around. 81. Compound walls are a pain in the ass to be placed on steep terrain. Always keep this in mind when deciding where you're gonna have your base built, and if you're gonna want to have a compound at some point. 82. Another great reason why you should build gatehouses instead of normal compound gates is because if you're gonna have overlapping TCs built back into your base, or if you're gonna want to have a furnace base or a refinery base, you can connect this to the gatehouse or the other way around. 83. Use what you have. Now, this makes sense, I guess, but based on my experience in Rust, not everyone does this. What I mean with this is the following. You have partially stone base but metal laying around, or a lot of metal laying around. Upgrade everything to metal. Why not? It's literally pointless to have that box with metal laying around if your base isn't full metal yet. Because it's better to have it put into the walls and make it harder for people to raid you or not being able to raid you, rather than having it in a box. Because in either cases, it will be gone anyway. I'd rather always have put the stuff into my base so that the raiders potentially get less. 84. Stability is a thing in Rust and can be very annoying to work with. Hence, another reason why you always want to pre-build your base on a build server. But a simple way to treat stability is to know that it usually happens when your base is a bit hollow. If you have low stability on the top and you can't place something, try to fill up your base with more walls or more double door frames or single door frames, etc. 85. When placing a compound and you want to make sure that the compound walls are straight, a nice trick that you can use is by using another teammate. You can tell him to stand where the wall should end. Have the wall clip over him, you won't be able to place it, and then tell him to go away. You place the wall and you keep repeating this step. Now this way you can use a friend to guide and have a perfect compound. 86. Considering at this point you've already made it to point 86, I just have to say, if you're looking for a strong group basis, multi-TC, 3x3 variant, make sure to check out my channel. I have a lot of good and strong base designs, especially for online raid defense. 87. The tool cupboard will repair by itself slowly over time whatever is broken in your base. Now, of course, this only goes for building blocks. For example, if you have a base with a shooting floor and you just did a tech heli and the base is made of stone and some stone stuff on your base is damaged, you actually don't have to repair it yourself. Over time, the TC will waste a bit more stone, but it will repair whatever is stone that got damaged. Now, of course, it depends on the situation that you're in. If you expect to be online raided a lot, you always want to make sure to manually repair all the walls because it takes a lot of time for the TC to repair it. 88. You can place a locker in a triangle, but only in the following way. Now, I like to use this a lot because you can actually have a bedroom that's, for example, a square with a locker attached in a triangle area. It can save a lot of time and it can allow you to make nice bedrooms. 89. Another nice trick to do is make square loot rooms on the floor, especially when you have smaller bases for smaller groups. Now, you can do it the following way and make sure that the walls are stone, otherwise it's still possible, but it's harder. Also, you can place a campfire in the middle of the 4 boxes the following way. I personally really love to make loot rooms like this. 90. You can actually have chests and other deployables clipped through the wall. You can do that the following way using a roof. Now, I actually consider this as pretty broken, so I expect Rust to fix this pretty soon. Although, while it lasts, it could be very strong to use. 91. External TCs built back with building foundations to your base will take over partially the cover of the privilege of your base when the main TC gets destroyed. Now, if you have any type of base, it doesn't matter if you have a big or a small base, always do this. When people raid you, they most likely won't be able to place a TC where they'd want to, and in some cases, if done well, the raiders won't even be able to place a new TC, meaning that you won't lose your base, even if you get raided. 92. Siren lights are actually very overpowered compared to how much they cost to craft and compared to how much they cost to be destroyed. Now, you're also able to pick up siren lights, and this is honestly an insane thing. Siren lights can block people, for example, from going through single door frames or other narrow areas, for example, on your shooting floor. Now, it's really nice to use this because everyone that has building privilege will be able to pick them up, so you will be able to get through the areas when you'd really need to, but it's an absolute pain for raiders to raid anything that has these things placed. 93. An easy way to make your TC unlootable is by using a window and attaching a floor on half height. Now remember, there has to be a wall next to the window because the window frame alone won't hold up the ceiling. Number 94. In smaller bases, it is actually smart to use windows as doors. Why you want to do this is because technically they do function as a door, because everyone with building privilege is able to pick up the metal windows. On the other hand, if the metal window is in a stone wall, it costs the same amount of rockets and C4 to destroy the window or the stone wall. If it's placed in a metal wall, it will cost the raiders cheaper to go through the metal window, as the window is the cost of a stone wall and the metal wall is a metal wall. It is nice to use this, but don't use it too much, because if raiders do end up getting your TC, they will be able to pick up all the remaining windows. And that's why you always want to make sure you always have doors as well. 95. A nice way to hide your TC is by placing it in a triangle behind the tier 3 workbench. What you do is you place it in a triangle with a single door. You code lock the door and you make sure that every one of your team has the code to the door. Then place the tier 3 in front of the door. You'll still be able to access the door and the TC. Now, next to the fact that raiders might not be able to find your TC even, they have to destroy another door to get to it. And when they destroy the TC, they can't loot it unless they destroy the tier 3 workbench as well. 96. Foundations, including stairs, can be picked out. Most people know that you can pick out foundations, but not a lot of people know that you can also pick out foundation stairs. Remember this, especially when you're building a multi-TC base. 97. Stashes can be placed on terrain and they can still be built on top, or you can still place deployables on top as well. Now, since I just explained that you can actually pick out foundations, what you could do, for example, is have a designated spot where you place stashes that you can always fill up with a foundation. And then, when you're gonna log out, place all your good loot in the stashes, stash them, place the foundation on top and upgrade it. The next day, when you come back, all you have to do is pick out the foundation. It comes with some time consuming picking, although raiders will most likely not be able to find your loot. 98. When implementing any type of bunker into your base designs, make sure you're up to date with all the current information about the bunker and exploits, etc. A lot of bunkers at the moment are actually counterable, and by the time you're watching this video, there might already be new ways to counter a specific bunker. So always make sure you're up to date with this before implementing it on your main base for a wipe. 99. Don't use single doors when you're playing in bigger groups. Only for specific places, because it is nice to funnel raiders to a small door. But when you're playing in a bigger group, it can be super annoying because no one can fit through the door. People want to go in and out, etc. Number 100. It's honestly amazing if you actually have made it to tip number 100. And for that, I really want to thank you. Now, there was probably a lot of things in this video that you already knew. But on the other hand, there might already be some things that you didn't know yet. There's a lot more stuff about base building in Rust that I could cover. Although this video is also aimed for beginning players in Rust. And so, therefore, there is some common things that a lot of people might know already. With this said, if this video works out to be really good for a lot of people, I will consider making a part 2 with another 100 base building tips. And I also definitely plan to make a tip 100 video about other aspects in Rust, for example raiding, etc. Next to all that, if you're interested in me actually playing the game, I do have a gameplay series on my channel. And next to that, I also feature a lot of base builds and tips and tricks about Rust in general. So make sure to check that out if you are interested. Alright, that was it for this one. I really hope you enjoyed. And I really hope that at least some of the tips here were really useful for you. Now we've almost reached 10,000 subscribers. So I'd really appreciate it if you haven't subscribed to my channel already, to make sure you do. If you liked the video, leave a like and leave a comment as well. I would really appreciate that as well. And that's basically it. Now thanks for watching. Take care and I'll see you all in the next one.